I'm so excited. You know I don't like it when we fight. I just have a lot of questions.
No, I know.
So hello and welcome back to
The Greatest Genre. This is our spoiler section.
Spoiler section, episode 6, part 2.
Yes, of chapters 26 through 31 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. We're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty. Nicely done, Jessica. You spelled. Some quick housekeeping notes. Just a reminder that this is our spoiler section.
Yes.
If you have not read all the way through ACOTAR, Crescent City, and Throne of Glass, you will not want to read. Listen on.
You should
read on.
You should read everything, but there will be spoilers. So if you do not want spoilers for A Court of Thorns and Roses, Throne of Glass, or Crescent City, I'm so sorry. I cannot advise you to listen any longer.
Bye-bye. Stay away.
But for the rest of you who
Welcome.
are like us and cannot get enough and have read everything, we are about to dive in, deep dive on the events that have unfolded between chapters 26 and 31 of A Court of Thorns and Roses as it kind of applies to the larger SJM verse.
Universe. Yes. So right off the bat, we will start with chapter 26, this meeting with Rhysand.
I actually want to jump back
even further?
Just to lunch.
This was so funny to me, rereading this.
It was so funny. And, Lucian is so relatable. Oh, my God, please. I'm trying to eat. So gross. But we've gone over that already. My note here was, this is the first time we've heard the term spy master. And I don't know about you.
Did it remind you
of
me
think of a certain
shadow
other shadow daddy, singer. My bad.
No, Shadow Daddy is the appropriate terminology for Azrael.
Yes. Yeah.
This was so funny because as I was reading this, I was like, ugh, I can't imagine being in a room with two people as annoying as this. And then
we remembered
it was like
Rhys and Feyre are the worst.
Literally talking to each other mind to mind in a room full of people. That would be
all the
so
time.
obnoxious.
They do it all the time.
So annoying.
It's rude.
It is rude.
It's rude. You and I would absolutely do that if we could. And
I just descended to giggles every 2 minutes.
I think we would be worse than Rhys and Feyre, honestly.
Honestly, it's probably safer for a romantic relationship than a best friend relationship because...
Oh my God, yes.
A lot of people can't stand to be in the same room as us in general.
Just normally, yeah. No, that's true.
So right after that scene
yes,
is the scene where Rhysand comes in.
But I have another note.
Oh my God, okay.
I told you my notes were lengthy.
It was so funny because Jessica's like, wow, my spoiler section is so long this time. And I was like, mine is literally 1 paragraph long. What do you have in yours?
Oh, I have so much.
Okay, well, proceed.
Okay, so also our first mention of the Winter Court.
Yes.
And for me, this actually, when I first read it, I was like, oh, a tragedy in the Winter Court. That's so terrible. I wonder what it means for the larger everything. But when I read it this time, I was so sad. And I was thinking, because now I know Calais and Vivian.
It was for Calais and Vivian.
And knowing, is Vivian
and also
under,
is
Vivian under the mountain? She's not,
knowing
right?
That
She's
Vivian,
in the court. She was there.
She was there when all this is happening.
And she was having to kind of carry, holding it all together.
She's the one holding everything together.
I immediately thought of her, not so much Calais. I immediately thought of Vivian having to be there and witness the death of all of those younglings. And having to hold the whole court together while Calais is being held under the mountain. And she's dealing with the fact that her love is stuck, trapped.
Down. And we do get our first note of a reference to Under the Mountain.
Yes.
And what's so funny is that I didn't notice that it's all capitalized when they refer to it.
Under the mountain.
It's always a capital U.
Yeah, like a proper noun.
Mm-hmm. It's like a place. And it's a very, what we know is that it's a very sacred place to them and that has now been tainted by Amarantha choosing to set up shop there, if you will.
But also interesting that she couldn't take over an actual court. She had to try and bastardize one for herself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's interesting that she...
Especially given her power that she has over everybody. But she tricked people into... So
Well, and I think we should wait to discuss that until next episode because Alice explains everything to Feyre. But
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
So now my notes have transitioned into Rhys's sort of. I would say this is Rhys's formal introduction because when we got introduced to him before, we didn't know that this is who this was. He was just a mysterious, beautiful stranger.
That would indicate as to his true status.
What a stark contrast to the feeling that she get. Like when we're first introduced to him, we're relieved that he's arrived.
Mm-hmm. But also there is some.
He unsettles her a little bit. But nowhere near to the effect that he does in this scene, or even, like, in contrast to those, like, nasty little fairies, he is her savior. I think she even uses that term in that scene. And we are, as readers, relieved that he has appeared and helped her.
I think that's probably why this contrast is so stark as well. Like, she's like, this isn't the person that I met. This person is a completely different version of,
and my God, is he ever. Like, this was scary. Hard for me to read.
Yeah.
This was really hard for me to read.
Well, I think it also goes back to Rhysand doesn't always make decisions, even after we know what a good person he is, that we agree with. Like, I have a lot of notes about how he treats people in Silver Flames.
I have a lot of notes about his isolationist political policies.
Why don't you think that...
Well, so here are a couple of my questions.
Okay.
All of the other High Lords know about this deal that she's made, the curse on the Spring Court and on Tamlin.
Yes.
They all know, right?
Yes.
My first question is, why are they all... Like, we know these characters. We know these High Lords. They are powerful, but they are also very smart. Mm-hmm. I'm finding myself very disappointed in all of them, particularly Rhys, that nobody is trying to... This is their out. Amarantha's hubris became so great she actually provided them an out, and nobody had the idea or the balls to, like, maybe try and help Tamlin out?
Well, I think that, first of all, Rhys is the only one who is allowed to leave.
I understand that, which is why my disappointment with him is a little greater than the rest of them.
So I reread chapter 54 right before, this morning actually, because I was like, I'm
not even talking about just in this specific moment. This has been going on for 50 years.
Well, I think that, hang on a second.
Tamlin has been cursed for 49 years. I know, but my point is that nobody was trying to help him at all.
I think we don't know the full extent of what is going on. So she has taken away almost all of their powers. The only reason that Rhys is able to do what he did is because Amarantha gives him back some of his.
Yeah, because he's playing the part, and I understand that. I also
think that, so he also, the reason I think that once he meets Feyre, he's not trying to move this along and help him out is because he already suspects at this point that she is his mate.
Okay, but we're talking about the opportunity to, because under the mountain, Feyre does understand, and I think Rhys actually tells her at one point, finally, our only hope here is to get Tamlin so riled up and so angry that if her curse over him does break, which means he gets his full powers back, he will be so full of rage that he will just kill her. And that is our only chance. He says that to Feyre. That is our only shot. And we are this close.
Which I don't actually understand because other High Lords not...
Because Amarantha didn't offer the other High Lords a bargain to break their curse.
Because she wants Tamlin.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Her greed and her pride, which is almost always a villain's undoing.
Yes.
A true villain, I would say. She made a mistake. She messed up because she was so confident that Tamlin would never be able to break the curse. But that was their out. And it just surprises me.
I can't speak to the last 49 years.
It just surprises me that nobody decided, guys, we all have a common enemy here. Like, Rhys coming in here to the Spring Court and being so antagonistic, so nasty.
Well, first of all, none of them are allowed to come out.
Rhys is. Rhys is, and we know, because he does go back and lie to Amarantha, we know that Amarantha can't see or hear what he is doing in the Spring Court.
But, okay, so also, Rhys doesn't know that Feyre is with Tamlin until he's about to leave, and then he realizes that she's there. So he doesn't know that Tamlin has been getting along with a human. up until right when he's about to leave.
He met her at Calanmai.
She doesn't know that she's with Tamlin. He doesn't go into her mind that.
I know that, but don't you think Rhys is a little too smart to consider it a coincidence that there's a curse on Tamlin, that if he falls in love with a mortal, that the curse breaks, and that Tamlin had been trying to figure out a way to do that, and then all of a sudden, for the first time in 50 years, Rhys goes to the Spring Court, and there's a human girl?
So when he's rehashing this in chapter 54 of Mist and Fury.
And we also know that he's been seeing her. Like, Rhys knows.
But he's never seen her face. So this is the first time he's seen her face. And the first time he sees her face is when basically 3 men are trying to rape her, is what's going on.
Or eat her.
And he knows that he has to bring back people, traitors from the Spring Court, for Amarantha. So he's not focused on anything to do with Tamlin when he's in the Spring Court at that time. The only reason he is there is because he thought that she might be here. He has no idea. Like, this is genuine from just having reread chapter 54.
So what does he say when he's there on Calanmai? I thought he was there on Calanmai just because he was allowed to be out there, and
no,
he was like spying.
He was there on Calanmai to look for her. Because
But what did he tell Amarantha he was going for?
To see if he could find the rebels in the Spring Court. Yes, he's been having, like, his sources have told him that there is, like, a rebel uprising.
So then why did he think he was going to find her in the Spring Court?
Because he was given a dream. Like, he can see her dreams sometimes. So like, when she's having nightmares, he can see her nightmares.
Right.
And she had a dream about the unlit bonfires of Calanmai. And he was like, oh my God, she's in the Spring Court. I have to go and see if I can find her. And she does find her, and he finds her in a very precarious situation, and immediately brings those 3 back to Amarantha, has them tortured, and he thinks that that's going to be it. He has no idea that she's staying in Tamlin's manor with him.
So what did he think she was doing there? We really think he just chalked it up to a coincidence that she was there in the Spring Court knowing about the curse? Use your brain for a second.
But Jessica, he doesn't know she's there because he arrives there and he's about to leave.
Okay, but again, we've heard so many times that a mortal could never survive in Prythian just, like, hanging out on their own, right? Like, obviously she was under somebody's protection.
Okay, but so this is the way the story is, though.
I'm not saying that it's not the way the story is. I'm just saying I'm pointing out some things that did not occur to me the first time I read it.
Fair enough. I understand where you're coming from. But I think that every rational thought of his goes out the door when he thinks that she is in danger. He has blind spots when it comes to Feyre.
But he didn't think she was in danger when he found her cowering behind Lucian in the dining room.
Are you kidding me? He's like, oh my God, because he can tell immediately what she means to Tamlin. And he knows immediately what she means to Rhys. But he's like, he has to get her out.
But he didn't think she was in danger from Tamlin or Lucian.
No, not at all. But he knows that Amarantha will go to the end of the earth to torture her in horrible, horrible ways if she finds out that she is there and that Tamlin loves her, or even worse, if she finds out that Rhys has feelings for her.
Okay, but that's the whole key to breaking Amarantha's power to begin with.
I don't think it matters to him. If it means that she's going to get tortured, his mate,
but she wouldn't get tortured if the curse is broken, then Tamlin's strong enough to fight her.
I think there's a lot that can go wrong between the curse being broken and between her being physically under the mountain.
She wouldn't have ever had to go under the mountain. If Tamlin had just said that he loved her, like if Rhys had never showed up, and within the next couple of days they had professed their love to one another, the curse would have been broken.
Is that how I don't even remember
yes,
what,
yes. Rhys even says to Tamlin, that's why he says she would have been the one.
Yes, I do remember that.
And then he lies to Tamlin and says, you would have almost gotten away with it, but she's too stubborn. And, like, only because Tamlin sent her away did Feyre decide not to tell him that she loved him.
What are we fighting about right now? I'm confused.
We're fighting. We're not fighting. We're not fighting. I think Rhys was short-sighted and selfish here.
Well, I think that he had to go because the Blight is about, like, the 50 years is about to be up.
Actually, wait. I'm going to retract that. I don't think Rhys was being short-sighted and selfish.
What he was trying to terrify them to get her out because...
And objectively taking personal investment out of it strategically. And this is Lucian's perspective, too. Strategically, dumb. You are so close. You are so close to actually being able to break Amarantha's hold on the spring court. Tamlin gets all of his powers back, and then at least they have a fight. Because Alice even tells Feyre she knew she could never conquer Prythian with the High Lords at their full strength. That's why she had to do what she did.
Right.
So if even just one of them comes back to the full power, which is what happens at the end under the mountain, and he just kills her because he's stronger than she is.
So what you're saying is that you just think it was dumb for him to try and get Feyre out of Prythian.
I do.
Which, okay, I see that. But I also think
it would have totally altered the course of the story, and it would have not been good enough. It would not have been as good, for sure. Like, that's not the way it played out. But I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, how does someone as shrewd as Rhys not see those strategies?
In chapter 54, he says that she's going to send some people to the Spring Court to, like, basically go and get Tamlin. She's going to start making some serious... And
Rhys didn't want Feyre to be there when that happened.
Because, like, Amarantha, she's getting, like, antsy. Because we're nearing the end
because she thinks her victory is nigh.
Mm-hmm. And so she doesn't
have
start
any
sending
idea.
people to the Spring Court to basically start getting Tamlin and Lucien, start really riling things up. And he is terrified that if she is there, she'll be able to tell in a second what she means to Tamlin.
And she doesn't want to risk, I mean, at the very least, she's not going to allow that to continue.
No.
Because if Tamlin breaks the curse, she's toast.
Mm-hmm. Basically. A lot of language indicating the mating bond, though, in this scene.
No, for sure.
His smile, even heartbreaking in its beauty.
Yes.
Things like that. His voice dropped to a whisper, an erotic caress of a sound that brought heat to my cheeks. Mm-hmm. A lover's laugh. Yes. Slow and soft and intimate.
He's very, I mean, you said it in the last episode. Everything being woven around this character has an air of sensuality, an air of temptation, of mystery, and he's obviously beautiful.
Yeah.
As we know.
I just think it's important to remember that Rhys is not... this is a role that he is playing here. He is not his true self. And we have to remember that.
I know, but
is tough.
And I guess we should wait until we get into Mist and Fury to discuss that a little bit more, because I think Under the Mountain is so significant, not just for Feyre and for our main characters, but for the larger geopolitical landscape of Prythian in general, because up until Amarantha, all of the courts were very adversarial. There were really no such thing as, like, alliances between
maybe
them.
Slightly between the Day Court and the Night Court, because they're right next to each other.
Yeah, but even then, like...
There's not a level of trust between any kind of... Every court has an isolationist policy.
And Under the Mountain does change that, I think, in a lot of ways, especially because we find out next chapter from Alice that Amarantha actually killed three of the High Lords under the mountain, didn't she?
I think that's Tarquin is a new High Lord.
Summer, Winter... I thought there was one other one. Was Thesson new?
I don't know if Thesson is new. I know that Summer is new. I didn't think that
Rhys and Tamlin were relatively new before Amarantha came back. I think Tamlin and Rhys's fathers were killed very shortly before Amarantha staged her coup, because Tamlin and Rhys were both already High Lords when they went to the ball.
It was very interesting. So, yeah, Rhys and Tamlin was the only one who didn't trust her, besides Rhys. Everybody else thought that she was going to come back and play nice, and she was trying to...
Which I also find to be very short-sighted and stupid.
Well, Tamlin was the only one that...
He did not like her from the very beginning, because she and his dad were so close, and we know, had a not so great relationship with his dad.
That is the reason why, despite Tamlin being Rhys's enemy, his second most, he says about Tamlin, besides Amarantha, Tamlin is his number one enemy. Yet he's the only one that saw Amarantha for who she really was.
And I do have another note here that says, knowing this, like, I think there's still so much we don't understand about their relationship and their history, because you can feel it in the room.
Dude, the hatred rippling off Tamlin.
And you can't hate someone that much unless you were first very close with them.
No.
And as we've discussed before, I think Tamlin actually gave Rhys much more true friendship than Rhys ever gave him.
Yeah. Which is really sad.
It is really sad.
I think that Lucian is Tamlin's
and I knew that
friend.
rereading this book was gonna turn me into a Tamlin
girly once again.
But like,
you and I both think Tamlin deserves the redemption arc, and I even rereading this, it's reinforcing it for me as I read it.
I agree.
Even though I disagree with a lot of actions that he takes, specifically Under the Mountain as well, I don't think anything was done any time maliciously. I think he was short-sighted sometimes. Love blinds you.
I think in some ways he's maybe not as brave as we would want him to be, and I think that stems from the insecurities that he has from the way that he was raised. I don't think anybody made him believe in himself.
No, he never planned to be High Lord.
And to be fair, Feyre didn't grow up with anybody being like, believe in yourself, you can do anything. Like she just found that strength within herself, and that's why we love her. Mm-hmm. But I hold out hope for Tamlin that he can go on his own healing journey and find the courage and the self-awareness and the peace.
I want him to find love.
I do too.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I did have some notes, though, about Tamlin's response. I mean, like, listen, you and I have never been in a situation where someone is breaking into the mind of someone that we love. So I can't speak to how I would react to that, but it wasn't so much the raging and the throwing things, although I will say there is something about a man raging that is very scary, and I don't agree with it, but whatever.
Are women allowed to throw things around?
I don't think that anybody should react like that, but I'm saying it is a much more physically imposing thing when a man starts yelling, I think, than when a woman starts doing it.
But he waited until she left the room.
After refusing to tell her anything, once again.
Yes, totally. I think I think the gatekeeping that Tamlin is doing is not fair, but I do want to remind.
But I do think he can't tell her.
Part of his curse is that he cannot tell her anything. Mm-hmm. And I had forgotten that until I read ahead to chapter 32.
Is it like specific, like he's not allowed to tell her?
He cannot tell her anything
about the curse itself, but he can tell her a little more than what he's been telling her.
He could have told her that Amarantha had. You know what?
Like,
I actually don't know. I actually don't
know. Like, here are the reasons that I don't let you go and do shit by yourself is because there is a woman.
Well, I don't know. I have to reread it again.
I don't remember either.
What I do know that Alice says is part of his curse is that he could not breathe a word.
Yeah, because I guess I had a note being like, just knowing how he is at the beginning of Mist and Fury, like, he still gatekeeps.
Correct. And that is what makes it not okay. Like, even after Feyre has proven so much strength and so much courage, even after she has given everything, he still doesn't let her in. He still doesn't trust her with any real responsibility. He still treats her like this fragile
flower
human, even though she's not anymore.
Yeah, because it's in stark contrast to how Rhys treats her. Mm-hmm. From the very get-go, he is always tells her everything that she wants to know.
Well, and even Under the Mountain, the way Rhys speaks to her and behaves towards her. And Tamlin and Rhys in the dining room, and Tamlin just frozen there, it's a lot of foreshadowing to the way that Tamlin is just frozen there under the mountain. Remembering all the way up to the end where Rhys says, if I ever had descendants, or if there were just anyone reading the histories, I couldn't be the person who didn't try.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the difference between Rhys and Tamlin, is that Tamlin doesn't try. He's not willing to try because he's so sure of his own failure.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. He doesn't put it all on the line like Rhys does. And it's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch because I think he does have the capacity to do it. He just chooses not to. Mm-hmm. Let's see, where are we in my notes?
Also, just very quick, have to compare first time with Tamlin versus first time with Rhys.
Like I said, different. They're so different. And the mini trope that we discussed of like, this could be the last night ever is just so one of my favorites. Is it as good as Just One Bed?
No.
I don't know. There's something so dramatic about this could be our last night together.
I know, but it was the immediately leaving afterwards. Like, he tried to get, I know that it wasn't in any kind of way, but like,
yeah,
it's just when two people are meant to end up together, you don't leave right after you've had sex. You stick around. I'm sorry.
At least for an hour or two.
Yeah, like let's do some cuddling.
And he does.
After he is asked to stay.
You should not have to ask your man to hold you while you fall asleep. That's true. Jamie Fraser would never.
The next morning, as she's getting into the gilded carriage, this was giving a lot of those ridiculous dresses and parties that she has to be at while she's miserable at the beginning of Mist and Fury. Like,
I always think of the wedding dress from Enchanted when I think of her.
It's just a bad situation. And it's like he still doesn't get her.
Well, he's putting her in the carriage and the dress so that when she goes back to the mortal realms, she looks like she's been at Aunt Ripley's house. But you don't need to be, I think at one point she's like, I feel like I should have had a parasol. Maybe the mortal women carry parasols.
You can look the part while not looking frilly and ridiculous.
Isabel, you don't know that.
Like, look at the way that Nesta and Elaine dresses.
She even says, like, the servants were horrified when I donned a tunic and trousers. Like,
I'm not saying that she should have worn a tunic and trousers on her way back. I'm just saying that her dress could have been a little less ridiculous.
We don't know that Tamlin has been hand-selecting these gowns the way that Rhys does in the Night Court. This could be Alice. Maybe Alice is pissed that Farrah's leaving, and so this is Alice's little revenge. I maintain that this could be Alice.
When she gets back.
Rhys is just lucky that his mom had such good taste, you know what I mean? Because he does hand-select all of Farrah's clothing in the Night Court.
He always looks 10 out of 10. I mean, his clothes are always very tailored, complementing the powerful cut of his muscles.
Cassian would have no time for tailored velvet clothing.
I can't talk about him right now. We just don't have time. I am not prepared to talk about my book boyfriend at this time.
Okay. I respect your boundaries. I want to once again talk about... Sorry, I feel like we've gotten a little bit down a rabbit hole. Where were we?
She's about to leave back to go home.
Yes. Okay, I'm so sorry. I missed a couple of notes.
Okay.
Because I wanted to do a quick note about the irony of Tamlin saying very haughtily to Rhys, like Haughty.
No, I understand.
I don't enforce rank in my court. Purely talking about how fucking, pardon my French, classist Tamlin is revealed to be in the second book. I don't enforce rank in my court?
Absolute bullshit. The tithe?
Yeah.
Lest we forget about the tithe.
I don't enforce rank in my court, sir. That's all I have to say. Not what you call ironic. And then another note about Rhys's power. And I know we touched on this last episode, but so it was magic, but deeper than that. Power that seized everything inside of me and took control. Even my blood flowed where he willed it. Mm-hmm. An invisible, talon-tipped hand scraped against my mind. Going back to Heir of Fire, the official quotes are, Aelin felt from Maeve a throbbing in her blood, and a tapping, and then a razor-sharp slicing against her mind.
It's the same.
Sounds
pretty familiar.
Similar. So, and then one more note, when Rhys leaves, he vanishes into nothing, as if he'd stepped through a rip in the world.
It's just the language that she uses. Rip
in the world.
Because he's clearly just winnowing him.
But there are so many references throughout the SJM verse to a rip in the world. Aelin ripped open a hole in their sky.
That's how Amren
saw a rip in the world.
And she went through it because her curiosity got the best of her.
Like, there's just... Do we get a mention of a rip in Crescent City? I don't know if we have yet.
I'll have to reread it because I read those so chaotically.
I even tried Googling, like I was totally going to take the easy way out. I was like Googling all of the references to a rip in the world in SJM, and nobody has put together a thorough, exhaustive index of references. So I guess that's going to have to be me. Because I know that is a theme that we hear a lot about, and I think it's going to be very key to unlocking the connection between these three series and these three worlds, and figuring out how all of these characters are supposed to influence each other's stories.
Yeah, the only reference to rips in the world we have, or reference of going through worlds in Crescent City, when Bryce does it at the end of.
And those are gates.
That gates, exactly. It's not the same thing.
Which is still significant because you have the word gates in throne of glass. But anyway, and then when Tamlin is telling Feyre she has to leave, he says that she has to leave because she wouldn't survive the fight against Amarantha. And I just do have to point out that he does in fact prove to be correct about that. She does in fact, major spoiler alert,
she does
die.
He is doing exactly what Rhys wanted him to do when Rhys shows up.
And Lucien...
He scared him to within an inch of his life.
Lucien and I are on the same team because Lucien is like, looking around going... He literally looks at Feyre and says, I thought you were smarter than this. He's frustrated with Tamlin.
By that? Do you think that he means I thought you should have figured it out by now? Or like I thought you were smarter than this? Like don't you know that you're in love with him and that he's in love with you too?
I think it's everything. I think he had really grown to respect Feyre. Feyre is very sharp. She's very observant. And I do think he's a little bit frustrated that she hasn't been able to pick up on things because towards the end, Under the Mountain, when she puts together the whole Heart of Stone thing, she realizes all the things that she had heard throughout that she had been meant to hear. And I couldn't help but wonder how much of that was actually Lucien.
That's a good point. But she does kind of scold herself a little bit when she goes back home to her sisters and she's like, I was so blissfully, stupidly, selfishly happy. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on.
Well, and I think that's part of Lucien's frustration here. It's like, yeah, this is great that you guys are falling in love, but like, he's over here being like, the clock is fucking ticking.
Because it's a few months that they have left, I think.
I think when she left, Alice said when Feyre left, she had a matter of days. It was a matter of days before the curse was up.
No, because she's down under the mountain for months.
Feyre is after she comes back to Prythian.
So there must be months left.
No, because Amarantha comes and gets Tamlin when the 7 times 7 years are up.
Oh, okay. And then he has to be under the mountain with her.
Yes.
I'm excited to reread that entire
It's so
sequence.
Intense. I accidentally stayed up and read the whole thing like a week ago. It's really bad. Okay, so now we get to talk about the sisters smart.
Dude, Nesta
made differently. I had to like put the book down for a second when I reread the sentence about Nesta had been made differently because of course I immediately thought about how down the line she is able to make and unmake
people. Literal people.
Like this use of the word made. Because I remember the sentence of like everyone stood there in awe because Nesta just unmade her, the queen.
I was also thinking about how this is the first time I think that Feyre truly understands who Nesta is as a person.
I think she's starting to. I think it's the first time Nesta has revealed anything
about herself
to her sister.
And it was just interesting thinking about Nesta's whole character arc in Silver Flames and how I thought that Feyre got her a little bit more at that point in the story.
Yes.
And
it's the first time we hear Nesta open up about how much she hated her father and resented her father for her father's lack of
just doing anything.
Her father's lack of being a father and a husband.
Rereading this, I was just like, her dad is just so fucking absent. And
he's very weak.
And he says that he cares. And like, I get that he shows up with like 3 ships and like save the day, whatever, and Wings and Ruin. But I'm like, he doesn't have any of that strength as a character. It's like everything.
Well, it makes you think again about who their mother was and who she must have been. Because the fact that the glamour doesn't work on Nesta.
Huge.
Is wild. And the fact that Nesta and Feyre both have her eyes and both have this crazy strength about them. Like the glamour doesn't work on Nesta. Feyre is able to survive as a teenager and figure out so many things that any normal human teenager would never have been able to figure out on their own.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that Elaine's powers manifest. She's not giving me anything as a human.
She's not giving me anything as a human except for kindness. This ability, but it's more than that. She has this energy
that brings people that gravitates.
They gravitate towards her. She is able to make people feel light and happy. She's more than just likable. I think we're going to see her seer powers manifest a little bit more in a way I think it's going to be more than just being able to see things. I think she's also going to be able to project feelings or potentially even visions to other people. I mean, I think that this is pure conjecture at this point. I have no idea. But
I wonder if we'll get any of Elaine and her powers. Didn't SJM reveal that Flame and Shadow takes place like 6 months after the events at the end of Silver Flames?
Yeah.
So we know that at the end of Silver Flames, she's starting to begin her training again. Not Nesta, sorry. Elaine is starting to train again, whatever that means with her seer powers. I think with Amryn, maybe with more, I can't remember. So we might get a little more of whatever Elaine's powers are in Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
Even though I think you and I both don't think that we're going to get a ton of the ACOTAR characters in Flame and Shadow.
I hope it doesn't get stuck there for too long. I think it's like very cool and exciting that we know that there's a connection now between these worlds, and I think there's going to be a little bit of exploration between the connection of Rhys and Rune. I don't know why I feel this way, but I'm hopeful that it is a small piece of the story.
We'll see.
I definitely think we're going to be getting multiple points of view, especially now knowing that the opening chapter is Lydia's point of view. I think we need to prepare ourselves for not getting really anything from Bryce and Prithian for a while.
God, I'm so nervous.
Like, it might not be, like, till the end. You know what I mean? Like, we might just be stuck in...
No, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't completely take away Bryce's point of view. Nah, she wouldn't do that.
We'll see.
No.
I trust her, so we'll see what happens. Wait, I forget what we were talking about.
We were just talking about Nesta and
Elaine's
energy.
power.
And there's just, again, multiple references to Nesta being like, I shudder to think what she might do. If, like, she actually found a place where she was comfortable, felt like home, like, how much she could achieve as a person once she finds where she is supposed to be.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and Elaine, the other thing that stood out to me about Elaine during these chapters was how connected Elaine is to the earth and, you know, being outside, and she loves her garden. Oh, and she also, by the way, is like, I've been even thinking about maybe planting a vegetable garden, and I'm like, about freaking time. Couldn't have thought of that 8 years ago.
When we were starving.
Girl. But no, I think
that was one line that I pulled out with Nesta, which I loved. It was when Feyre is leaving and she's telling Nesta there is a better world out there waiting for you to find it. And if I ever get the chance, things are better, I will find you again. And Nesta literally says, don't bother. I don't think I'd be particularly fond of fairies.
Well, she's not.
It was just, really?
It's like, well, boy, you
are in for a treat.
You have another thing coming. So, again, this connection, like, again, Feyre draws these comparisons between she and Nesta and their mother. Mm-hmm. And this, Nesta and Feyre both have this edge. And you and I have theorized before about who their mother was. Mm-hmm. I love that you brought up the fact that their mother could at least have a connection to Prithian and at most actually have been a High Fae herself. And I really like that idea because I think it would explain a lot about who Feyre and Nesta are. And it also made me think
certain traits that they have.
Well, and it also made me think when Feyre comes back to the manor, she's looking around and she's seeing that her family is like well and cared for, but she still feels the weight of this guilt of this promise that she made to her mother. And it made me wonder for a minute. I was like, what if it wasn't really a promise? Like, if her mother was Fae, what if without Feyre realizing it, her mother made a bargain with her? At the age of freaking 8, which would have been
so messed
up, not okay again.
But it would explain the constant weight that she has.
Such a burden on her and why she feels it so deeply and she
she's
cannot
literally
be free
trying
from it
to escape back to her home while she's in Prithian when she first gets there because she's like, oh my god, I have to take care of my family.
It is so powerful, this weight of this promise that she made to her mother. I just feel like there had to have been some kind of magical binding there, like a bargain.
Also, it would explain the drive that she has and that her sisters don't have to keep them alive and help them survive. And if they didn't make that, ooh, Jessica, that's a good one. That's one of your best.
Is it?
Yeah.
I did think about it. I was like, wow, now that I'm rereading it and knowing more, and we're going to learn more about bargains under the mountain, you know, because Alice in the next chapter warns her against making bargains with Faye. And then she goes under the mountain, and not only does she bargain with Amarantha, she bargains with Rhys, and there's a whole bargains are a big deal in this world.
Yeah, and we'll definitely need to like review the rules of bargains and the weight that they carry.
Yes, and so going into these next couple of chapters, I just thought it was interesting to throw that little theory out there into the world.
I love that. I think that leaves us in a good place.
I think so too. Oh wait, I have one more thing.
Oh my god, okay.
This is our first reference to Lady Autumn. I'm very upset about the way Rhysand was speaking about Lady Autumn.
I was
especially knowing her story and everything that she has been through. I'm very disappointed in Rhys. That was a low blow. It was unnecessary.
A low blow, but it was an empty threat.
It was unnecessary.
But so
leave helpless women out of it.
Of course, but he is trying to paint a certain picture about what he is trying to elicit a reaction out of these two. He's trying to make them as afraid as they can possibly be so that they send Feyre away, which we have already discussed. Maybe he wasn't in the best. Maybe he fucked up by sending her away. Well, he didn't send her away. Tamlin sent her away.
I'm just saying, I feel like Amryn and Moore would have been like...
But he would never do anything. It's a completely empty threat. And he is committing to that version of him, that portrait that he is painting of himself.
Yeah, I know,
and it works.
It's dishonest. It is wholly and entirely dishonest.
What he's doing,
and yes,
the role that he's playing.
Yes,
I understand, but you cannot say that it hasn't worked. Velaris is safe, whether we agree with that or not.
I don't agree with the isolationist policy.
That's not just him, though. That is all of Prythian. That is every High Lord. They protect their court.
They protect their entire court. They don't protect a tiny little piece of their court and leave the rest of it to a nasty guy.
But I think Velaris is the majority of his court and the court of nightmares. And there's some kind of arrangement that he and Cat, and how do you say his name?
We're going to have to unpack that when we get to Mist and Fury. But as it currently stands right now, I am disenchanted. All right.
Okay.
So that is episode 6, part 2. We hope you enjoyed. We are very excited to go back to Prythian Adventure Under the Mountain. Since this is the spoiler section, we can go ahead and tease that.
Yes. I think we're going to do chapters 32 through either 35 or 36 next time. Should we maybe cover like her first trial? Yeah.
We'll be covering Feyre going back under the mountain through her first trial with the Middengard worm.
Mm-hmm. Regardless, we'll be back hopefully in 2 weeks. That's the cadence that we are committing to. And we will keep it part 1 and part 2 so that you are not overwhelmed by a 2-hour
And if you want to skip straight to the spoiler section next time, you can totally do that.
All right. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at @the_greatest genre, on Twitter at greatest genre, on TikTok at the greatest genre, and you can email us at thegreatestgenre@gmail.com. And you will also soon be able to buy t-shirts, merchandise.
Yes.
Greatest Genre t-shirts. We also have bookmarks.
Keep a lookout.
Yes, we'll be posting that information on our Instagram shortly.
Thank you. We love you all so very much.
See you next time.